Welcome to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Have a question for the show or need assistance with your retirement plan? Give Philip a call today. 863-285-3815. 863-285-3815.
The fear of outliving your money, that isn't a new concern for retirees, but it's become an even bigger concern for many of you, thanks to factors like inflation and longevity. Analysts say now is the time to get serious about planning for your future, and that's exactly what we'll talk about today. We're so glad you're here with us on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. I am Jen Rezac alongside, and going to have a great conversation today. There's a lot of concerns that people have, but Philip, I hope all is well with you and your family this week.
We are. It's doing well. I want to wish everybody, a happy Memorial Day weekend, and thankful for those that went before us and really made our country what it is today.
Yes, absolutely. Always one of those important things to stop and take a moment to reflect on what it's really all about, because so many times, Philip, people get caught up in the fun side of things and the quote official kickoff to summer. But really, we just want to take a moment and pause and reflect about what this weekend is all about. And I hope a lot of people get to spend some good time with their families this weekend.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. So, hey, we got some stuff to cover today, and I think we probably just need to dive right in. What you think?
I think so too. I'll tell you what, the latest research on retirement confidence unfortunately paints a pretty bleak picture. And I'll tell you, I want to get your reaction to this. Half of retirees report their overall spending is higher than expected. Might be fun, might just be groceries, I don't know. But the percentage of retirees who feel their retirement lifestyle is lower than they expected is also increasing. So I think sometimes people feel like they've bitten off more than they can chew when it comes to managing retirement.
Well, I think if you look at, unfortunately, what we've gone through now, with inflation being so high, at a 40-year high throughout the last year and a half, that started to impact everybody, and especially people that are on a fixed income. So, retirees are probably taking a bigger hit. And so, they're spending a lot more probably than what they originally thought they were going to have to spend in retirement. And so I understand that. And there is a concern. But I think they also have to remember that inflation is not going to continue forever. If we look at the last 40 years since the last time we had a huge increase in inflation, I think you'll realize that inflation really has only been about 2.5% maybe on average. And so, we'll get through this, and things will balance back out. Prices will stay higher, but hopefully earnings will get higher too, and interest rates will stay higher, and the market will start to do better than what it has been this last year and a half. And so, we look at that. And so I think that's all part of the process of making sure you got things allocated correctly in retirement.
Right. And you look at, we were just talking a little bit about those prices, high inflation, but also stock market volatility, and then longevity, the fact that people are living so long in retirement. All these things have spooked people a little bit, both people who are still working and people who are in retirement. How do you talk to people who are concerned about some of those risks when it comes to their retirement income?
Well, I think that, again, we walk through our core retirement design, and it addresses a lot of those concerns that they're looking at, especially when it comes to longevity, right? Because one of the things that people are really concerned about is outliving their money. That would be a detriment to anybody. And so, part of our process is to really build up that income plan to make sure that even if inflation continues to rise, that we should be able to keep up with, or at least do okay with the inflation that's there now. And it comes to the point where it's a balancing act between how much risk do we have in our portfolio and how much of our portfolio is protected from those market ups and downs. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people miss out on. They think everything has to be in the stock market. And it doesn't. To get decent returns, you can allocate it between two things, but But I will say this, something needs to be in the market because that's what's going to help you keep up with inflation. So
Right.
it may be a little bit of a double-edged sword, but we need a little bit in the market, and we can protect the rest of it.
And that's important for us to recognize there's a balancing act. So what goes into that retirement income strategy that can help people feel a little bit more confident about their future in retirement, help them strike that right balance when we're thinking about the amount of growth we want versus how we are preserving what we've saved?
So we start with the income plan to figure out where the money needs to go, right? And so we look at the income plan, and based on that income plan, then that determines how we need to allocate our resources within that plan. We know that we're going to need some immediate income usually off of that income plan, and so we'll use something that's going to protect our principal as best we can. A lot of times it may be some sort of an annuity that's going to protect and give us some income as well. But then we also need some growth, and that's going to be more market related, more stock market related. And so we're going to allocate between those two. And remember that the fact is that we really believe in using the rule of 100. So, that's kind of our gauge as well to determine how much risk somebody should have in their portfolio.
Tell me a little bit more about that rule of 100 and how we can get some of our questions answered if we're not sure about some of these strategies and what makes the most sense for us.
Absolutely. So the rule of 100 is pretty simple, Jen. We take 100 minus our age, and then that balance is what we should have in the market risk of our, for the risk part of our bucket. And so that's not a set in stone number, but plus or minus 10% is what we say it should be. Look, and we're pretty good about giving folks 30 minutes of our time. Give us a call. We'd love to talk to you on the phone, no matter what your circumstances are. And that number to call is 863-285-3815. You can schedule a 30-minute phone consultation where we'll answer your questions and make sure you're on the right track to the retirement you always dreamed of. Again, that number is 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. And as we talk a little bit about the uncertainty that so many people feel as it relates to their retirement, for people who don't feel very confident, a lot of them, Philip, they just don't know where to go for financial advice. The latest survey shows 2 in 5 were not sure where to turn for solid retirement planning advice, and only 24% of Gen Xers, we have to talk about Gen Xers getting ready for retirement too, and 38% of boomers met with a financial advisor last year. So people are a little bit confused about who to even ask their questions pose those questions to about retirement.
Absolutely. And because there's a lot of choices out there. Which direction do you go? And let me just say that I feel that the best way to go is use just somebody that has independence.
Okay.
You want somebody that is not being directed from the top saying, sell this, go here, go there. You want an independent firm that has access to all the different things out there that you may need in the planning process. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, because there's independent brokers that are still brokers. And I would say, look, you want to work with somebody that's basically a fee base that are a fiduciary to you, meaning they have to do what's in your best interest when they do that planning process. And I think that's a good starting point.
What's the first step for people who've done a good job saving, Philip, but they just aren't sure what to do with that 401k or their IRA now that they've retired? They're concerned about inflation and volatility and longevity. What's a good first step for those folks?
I mean, the first step is we need a plan, right? They need to reach out, find somebody, and I would suggest you interview a few people, right, to determine who best meets your needs, and then you need a plan. And I would say this too, because I think I see this enough, is that, look, if they're not charging you for a plan, know that they're getting paid somehow, right? If they don't get the investment, then they're not getting paid. So they're going to do whatever they can to pull you in. It's better to find somebody that you're willing to pay to get a plan put together, and then you can make the choice of who you work with to actually put that plan into play. And I think that gives you even more independence going forward.
So, Philip, let's talk a little bit about the fact that, again, these concerns, the fear of outliving your money, it's not a new concern for retirees, as I said earlier, but it's a bigger concern for a lot of people thanks to factors like inflation and longevity, as I mentioned. And, Philip, analysts say now is the time to get serious about planning for your future. So let's talk about how we get started with that.
Absolutely, Jen. I know a lot of folks out there are worried that they haven't saved enough, or they're not sure exactly when they'll be able to retire, if they'll be able to retire. And that's exactly why I developed my core retirement design, to help people design that retirement they always dreamed of. We'll look at the risk in your current portfolio. We'll look at the tax implications of where you are now, and put together a plan that will put you in the best possible light when it comes to taxes in retirement. And then finally, we'll put together an income plan that will get you into and through retirement. Give us a call at 863-285-3815 for our 30-minute, no obligation phone consultation, where we'll help you make sure that you are on the right plan to go forward. Again, that's 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back.
In times of volatility, the only wrong move is not making one. Call Philip and the team at Statler Financial Services today and find out where you currently stand with your portfolio. 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
Remember that first paycheck when you started working all those years ago and you looked at the net amount and thought, whoa, what happened here? Well, it could be this way with your retirement accounts. You know how much you've saved, but if you haven't planned for Uncle Sam, you could come up short in retirement. With tax laws constantly changing, there's a lot you need to know to make sure you're not paying more than your fair share. Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Team have helped hundreds of families plan for retirement for more than 20 years. They'll help you create a plan that shows you how taxes could affect you now and in the future. Set up a visit with Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial. Just give them a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Make sure you know how these changes could affect you so you can avoid some of those whoa moments in retirement. Call 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services but may not give tax advice. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Time to retire right. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. And Philip, I know we've joked about this before. Secure Act 2.0, first one passed at the end of 2019, and then they started talking about we weren't sure if this was a sequel or a do-over. Whatever it is, it's now our reality. Secure Act 2.0 is here, and there are some more changes that we need to be talking about. So, Philip, that's what we're going to get into. And, of course, I don't know if we ever determined, is this a sequel? Is this a do-over? Is it a little bit of both? What do you think?
It's a sequel. It's let's add a little bit to it. Let's fine-tune some things, is what I would say it is. But
right.
Have you ever noticed, Jen, how they always want to slip these things in December?
Yeah, when we're a little bit distracted.
Everybody's distracted with the holidays, and what does Congress do? Boom, they give us a new law that provisions take effect in 2023, the year we're in. And it's like, okay, could you give us just a little bit more time?
Yes.
And who do you think actually read the bill?
It was, Philip,
Anybody?
It was almost 4,000 pages long. Nobody read that whole thing. Nobody read that whole thing. No, you're right. It was part of the omnibus bill, which is kind of that catch-all spending bill that gets passed at the end of the year. I guess, Philip, it's kind of like everybody's scrambling to use all their PTO before the year ends. This is what Congress does too. We're scrambling to get it all thrown in there, but you're right.
That's a good analogy. Yeah, so.
You're right.
But this is times like this, Jen, I got to tell you, this is times that I'm so thankful that I'm part of Ed Slott's Master Elite IRA program, because, man, he has been so good about getting information out to us. And I would suggest anybody, because anybody can go to his website, right? and look through some of his stuff. And I would encourage folks to do that because he's got a lot of good information out there. And if nothing else, subscribe to his newsletter because it's pretty good too and keeps you up to date on IRA stuff. So, but it is definitely thankful for him paying attention to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. You can get some good information. I think the website is irahelp.com for anybody who wants to go do a little looking around to see what kind of information is available there, especially as you're getting close to retirement age. But you're right, Philip. So this is a resource for you that you were able to find out about or hear about some of these changes, even though everything passed at a time when we were at our most distracted, which is the week between Christmas and New Year, which is when Congress always passes things, and most of us don't even know what day it is because we're just trying to survive the holidays,
exactly. Yeah.
And then here we have, throughout the entire year, we'll continue to find things and unpack things from this legislation. But I'm going to go through some of the key changes, Philip, with this new legislation and get your take on some of this. So a couple of the things that we see now under Secure Act 2.0, allowing employees under age 59 and a half to make an emergency withdrawal of up to $1,000 without penalty. And thankfully, mercifully, Philip, that's the only half age that I'm going to talk about through all these changes. What is it with Congress and these half birthdays and these half ages?
No. Well, that's the one they left in there from original Secure Act is that still you can't take anything out without a penalty until you're 59 and a half.
Right.
I think this was, I don't know, maybe this was kindness on their part to say, hey, look, a lot of people don't have any kind of emergency money saved up. They're living paycheck to paycheck and they're afraid to put money in their 401k because what if I need it for an emergency?
Right.
So, I think this maybe lends itself to giving some people I have access to $1,000 if I need it. Mm-hmm. Still got to pay tax on it, but you wouldn't have to pay the 10%
but not the penalty.
It's
not the penalty.
Yeah, no.
Well, and Philip, so while you're on that a little bit, let's just talk about this whole idea of when you are saving for retirement versus building up your emergency savings, there's this factor of liquidity. And there's this whole idea of trade-offs, right? So if you're putting your money in something that's long-term for your retirement, you maybe don't have the liquidity, but there are some other features. But there is a need, especially really for anybody at any age, Philip, to have some sort of liquid savings that they can get their hands on in the event of emergency. I think that's just a general principle of planning that we talk about quite a bit on this show.
It really is. It really is. And unfortunately, most people don't do it. You're right.
Yeah.
We spend paycheck to paycheck instead of saving. And so, the general rule of thumb is that you should have, the real generally, you should have 6 months of income saved up. Now, I'd be thankful to see people have 3 months of income saved up, right? So that would help them cover that 3 months of maybe, because if somebody got laid off now, they'd still have unemployment. They have some other things to kick in, but you want to have ideally 6 months or more just in an emergency account that you could put your hands on if you needed it.
Yeah, just one of those principles that I thought we should touch on real quickly while we were on the subject. Talking a little bit about changes with Secure Act 2.0, some additional encouragement for retirement savings here, increasing part-time workers' access to retirement accounts, allowing employers to make contributions to 401k plans for employees who are paying down student loans. They're not saving for retirement, but they're still able to get that company match by the employer contribution, and then requiring automatic 401k enrollment for certain companies. There are some exclusions here, but really making this an opt-out instead of an opt-in. So I think the message here, Philip, is encouraging more people to put money in some of this long-term retirement savings.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's look at, you said most companies. Well, there are some, but if you have 10 or fewer workers, that's the only people that are exempt. There's a lot of those small businesses like that, but there's a lot of companies that are, quote, small businesses that have more than 10 employees. So,
yeah, that's true.
And they've got a 401k plan. So, I look at that and say, okay, it makes some sense to me to automatically enroll people. But I look at it from the employer standpoint too, as a business owner. And I look at the headache that could cause down the road. But, it is that deal. And I like the fact that they make people start to do that. I mean, in here, our state employees, they automatically have to put 3% in for their retirement. So why shouldn't other employees?
There you go. There you go. Philip, making it easier for annuities to become an income option for retirees and creating some tax credits for small businesses that let military spouses enroll right away in retirement plans and qualify for immediate vesting of employer matches. So it looks like, again, trying to increase flexibility in some areas, but then, we had that word require in one of those earlier provisions. So increase flexibility in some places, but reduce it, I guess, in others is what's happening here.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some good stuff in there, helping people for the most part. Let me tell you, though, there's one that I kind of like you haven't mentioned yet, and that it allows for you to take and roll over tax and penalty free your 529 plans.
Mm-hmm.
That have been around for at least 15 years. So let's say, hey, look, you got a child that didn't use all their 529 plan. Now, if it's been in existence at least 15 years and it hadn't been used, you can actually roll that into your Roth IRA and grow it tax-free for your own retirement. I kind of like that one because now it doesn't say, hey, look, if my kid doesn't go to college, now I got an out, right? So
right.
I kind of like that provision, Jen.
I wonder, and I'm glad you brought that one up because that's another area where we might have a little bit more flexibility. I wonder, though, Philip, as time passes on, what other changes might be made to one like that? Because right now the accounts do need to be at least 15 years old, but you can see where there could be some potential changes where they say, okay, now we have too many people who are taking advantage of this. Now we're going to have to put some additional strings attached or put some additional requirements on before you can take that money out. That's one of those things that we'll just have to see what happens as time goes on. But certainly I imagine, Philip, this would really open up some opportunities for people who were trying to do the right thing, trying to do what they saw as a good thing to help their grandkids save for college. And then for whatever reason, that money is stuck in an account that they can't really access any other way.
That's right. And so I really like that one. And it gives people it takes away an excuse for not starting a 529 plan.
Yeah.
Because now, hey, I can put in my Roth if my kid doesn't go to school. So
yeah,
I really like that one, and so, yeah, there's a lot of other stuff that's in that Secure Act 2.0 as well. One of the other ones, which doesn't make much sense to me, Jen, I'll be honest, is the catch-up contribution. It doesn't start until 2025.
Right.
But for people ages 60 to 63,
like I told you, though, but it's not 62 3/4. It's not a fraction age. So at least there's whole ages.
But people in that age, 60 to 63, after 2025, are allowed to put an extra 10 grand into their 401k plans. And it's like, okay, well, they're not going to retire till 67. So why don't you expand that a little bit? I just don't get that one. Mm-hmm. But hey, it's not up for me to get, I guess, what Congress does, but
it's their world. We're just living in it, right?
That's right.
That's what it feels like. Well,
hey, the other one we probably need to mention real quick before we close out
RMDs.
This little section is RMDs, right?
Yep.
So in 2023, this year, they raised the age by 1 year. So now you don't have to be 72, you got to be 73. Mm-hmm. 73 to take your required minimum distribution. And that number will go to age 75 in 2033. Now, that's a long time, but
right.
But at least they put some forward thinking into this bill, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And having a handle on your age for required minimum distributions, even when we have a little bit more flexibility now for people who turned 72 in 2023 and thought, oh my goodness, I have to start taking this. Now we've got some flexibility. They don't have to actually do that now. But just talk a little bit about how important it is for people to stay on top of some of these changes, because we don't want to be getting it wrong when it comes to some of these rules that are in place for taking money out of our accounts. And this is why, Philip, we need to have a strategy for taking money out of these accounts. And that's where your planning process comes into play, right?
Absolutely, Jen. That's where we stay on top of it for you, help you through that process. And again, that's why I developed the core retirement design to help people, number one, design the retirement they always dreamed of, but two, make sure that they're on track in both risk, taxes, and income. Those are the three pillars that you need to have and understand when you head into retirement. So I'm offering you a 30-minute, no obligation phone consultation to make sure that you are on the right path for the retirement you always dreamed of. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. Folks, it's that simple. 30 minutes with me on the phone, answering your questions to make sure that you are where you need to be to get ready for retirement. So if you're 5 years out from retirement or you're already retired, give us a call at 863-285-3815. And let's have a 30-minute conversation about where you are and what you need to be doing. 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler with Statler Financial Services. This is the Statler Financial Radio Show. We'll be back with more on Secure Act 2.0 coming up next.
Turn your plans of yesterday into yes today. Don't wait another day for a routine checkup of your retirement plans. Call Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
You can't see it, but you sure can feel it. The economy is struggling right now. Do you know how it might affect your retirement? Some retirement plans take into account economic downturns, stock market dips, interest rate fluctuations. Does yours? Take charge of your retirement by calling Philip Statler at 863-285-3815. Philip and his team at Statler Financial have been helping families prepare for retirement for over 20 years. They will help address the current economic situation and help you create a retirement plan designed to give you the confidence to move forward. Opportunities can exist regardless of economic conditions. Call the team, Philip Statler with Statler Financial at 863-285-3815 and find out ways you can prepare now for your retirement. Call 863-285-3815. Call them now. Schedule a visit. Let's get started. Firm offers insurance services. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal.
Welcome back to the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler and co-host Jen Rezac.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, talking today about Secure Act 2.0, because just a few years after the original was passed at the end of 2019, we now have more changes to our retirement planning system here in the U.S. with Secure Act 2.0. And Philip, we've been talking about this a little bit here on the show today, but let's kind of recap some of the most important proposals that you're seeing here with these changes under Secure Act 2.0.
So I think if I look through, there's a couple. One is the change in the required minimum distribution age. You know, they added one more year for this year. So now if you don't have to take an RMD till you're 73, and they extended that out to age 75, 10 years from now in 2033. But the other part that's in there that we forget about is, you know, if you don't take your required minimum distribution, you get penalized. That penalty right now is 50%. Now so part of Secure Act 2.0 is they're reducing that penalty for not taking your RMD from 50% down to 25%. So a pretty significant reduction. Though I will tell you that in the time I've been in the tax and accounting industry and in the financial planning industry, I've not seen anybody ever have to pay that penalty, because there's a waiver form within the tax return that if you say, hey, look, I forgot, forgive me, they do. I'm not seeing them ever not forgive somebody. So just a FYI there, but I think that's makes sense. Why take more money out of somebody's pocket for not taking it to catch up, you know? Mm-hmm. But the other one I like is I like the whole fact that I can now take a 529 plan that's been around for 15 years. And if my child doesn't go to college or my grandchild doesn't go to college, I can take that money and roll it into a Roth IRA. I think that takes away the excuse for not doing a 529 plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but Philip, when it comes to some of these changes, how important is it for retirees to be following changes like what we've seen under Secure Act 2.0, or do we need to worry about this until it's time for us to be getting into retirement? How much should we be following some of this?
I think that whenever you retire, you need to start paying attention, right? Because the rules can change on you. And I think just because the rule is out there doesn't mean we have to wait, right? We don't have to wait. There's nothing that says that you have to wait until you're 73 to start taking your required minimum distribution. You can start taking money out anytime after 59 and a half without having to pay a penalty. Now, yes, you have to pay the tax. But here's a neat little thing that somebody shared with me is that, they changed the Secure Act 1, the first one, changed the required minimum distribution age from 70 and a half to 72. Mm-hmm. And who do you think pays more taxes?
Oh.
The average retiree that takes their RMD at 70 and a half will pay 18% less in taxes than if they waited till 72.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to think that number is going to go up if they wait till 73. What it does for me is it extends out my planning time, right? Because now I got more time to put a plan together to reduce folks' taxes in retirement. And that's a huge deal because we know taxes are going up. We know that they're going up in 2026 automatically without us doing a thing. They're going to go up. And I feel like based on the amount of debt we have, interest rates going up, we're going to have to pay more in taxes. Taxes are going to have to go up. And I don't want you to have to pay more. So there are strategies in place that folks can use to help reduce those taxes in the long haul. Short-term pain for long-term gain. That's the whole deal. And everybody should be looking at that, Jen. They should be looking at how can I reduce my taxes over my lifetime? And there are strategies out there to do that. And we walk people through it every time.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, and I am Jen Rezac alongside. And Philip, here's another thing that we've pointed out here with these changes with Secure Act 2.0. The main goal for Secure Act and Secure Act 2.0 is to help more people do a better job saving for retirement. So let's talk a little bit about how this should look for people who are getting close to retirement. How do they know if they've saved enough and if they're saving it in the right types of places?
Jen, I can't tell you recently how many folks I've sat down with that said, look, I think I probably need $2 million to retire, or I think I need $1 million to retire. Mm-hmm. That's, to me, looking at it the wrong way. What we need to look at is how much income do you need to retire? And then we work backwards. Because what I find is that most people really don't need $1 million or $2 million. They need 500. They need 250 because they have a pension, or they need 750. You don't know what that number is until you put the plan in place that says, here's my income. What do I need to get back to? Folks, and this is the whole reason that I developed my core retirement design. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. and schedule your core retirement phone consultation. We'll spend 30 minutes with you, walking you through our process and determining if you're on the right track for the retirement you always dreamed of. That number again is 863-285-3815. Folks, don't procrastinate. Get it done today. It's a simple 30-minute phone call. 863-285-3815.
Philip Statler is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services, talking today about changes under Secure Act 2.0, and so important that we get that analysis done and we figure out what it is that we need to have saved for retirement. Are we doing this in the right places? And aside from having enough saved, and I guess, before we move on, Philip, we kind of touched on this earlier, but your money, you have different needs for your money. And when you're saving for certain things, Philip, sometimes you need more liquidity for your emergency savings savings, you need liquidity. You need a little less liquidity for some of that longer term savings, like for your retirement. But just talk a little bit about those different goals for our money, Philip, whether it's liquidity or growth or preservation. How do you help people break down those different places or goals that their money needs to have as they are trying to save for something like retirement?
So a lot of that, we base that on how our income plan ends up being put together. But the basics are this, right? We need to have that emergency money. That money you can put your hands on if something drastic happens, and you can get a hold of it, whether that's 20,000, 50,000, it's a comfort level thing for a lot of folks, Jen. But we have that conversation of what does it need to be for them? And then, we need to have some protected money, some money that's not going to be affected if the market goes down in value. And we're facing that right now, right? The market's headed down, it seems to be this year. And so we need some money that's going to be protected long-term from that strategy of the market going down. And then we need some money that's going to grow. It's going to have a little risk tied to it, but it's going to be there to help us keep up with inflation, right? It's going to be our risk bucket. So we need to have something in all of those different buckets. The question is how much? And that's where our process goes into play to determine what needs to be in each of those buckets to protect you for your retirement.
And so, Philip, aside from having enough saved and thinking about the saving for retirement piece of this, just talk a little bit about what else goes into what you would consider to be a comprehensive retirement income plan.
Well, I think that there's several things. One is you need to know when's it going to start? When are you going to start taking money out of it? And where's it going to come from? So often we see people that have a lot of stuff. They have a brokerage account, they have some annuities, they have some CDs, and they're taking money from here, but they don't know when am I supposed to switch from here to there. I call it the junk drawer approach. They've got a lot of stuff, but they don't have a plan on how it's all going to work together and when they're going to shift gears and take money from someplace else. And that's really what our income plan does. You need to know when it's going to start, where the money's going to come from, how long is it going to be there. And then you need, number two, it needs to be written. It needs to be something in writing that you can refer back to make sure you're on the right path for the situation you're in. And then it needs to have some provisions for healthcare because we don't ever know if that's going to be something that comes up. It needs to be mathematically sound. And what I mean by that is so many folks have what I consider some high expectations of what the market's going to do long term. And I tell people, look, let's build a plan that's ultra conservative. Because guess what? If it works when it's ultra conservative, it'll sure as heck work when the markets go gangbusters and we're making huge returns, right? But we want to be conservative. We want to make sure mathematically it's going to last until you're 100 years old. People say, well, I'm not going to live that long. You don't know. We're not promised tomorrow, but we don't know that tomorrow will be our last day either.
It's true.
Right? So we need to make sure that we've got a plan in place that will provide for longevity, whether it's you or your spouse, right? Because between the two of you, there's a pretty good chance that one of you will make it till 90. So I think we have to plan for that. Doesn't mean it'll happen, but if you have a plan in place and you've got that certainty of knowing that you're going to end up okay no matter what happens in the market, you've got your income coverage in.
And when we talk about preparing for retirement, making sure we've got our income covered, all of this requires planning. And the fact is, because these things don't happen by accident, having enough income, having it positioned the right way, it doesn't just happen by accident. It happens through planning. And nearly 70% of Americans are missing that written financial plan. And Philip, people without a plan, they do tend to feel a little less confident about the future.
Yeah, I know a lot of you are worried about you haven't saved enough or you won't even be able to retire. I know most of you don't have a written financial income plan. I mean, I know statistically, that's just the case. It's not there. And a written financial plan can help you feel much more financially stable because it gives you a roadmap to run on where you can see it in black and white. So you don't have to be one of those folks worried if your money's going to last as long as you need it to, even afford to retire. Folks, we have a process in place to help make sure the income's going to be there. It's our core retirement design. We're offering today 30-minute free phone consultation. We call it our core retirement phone analysis. Give us a call right now. We'll make sure that where you are is where you need to be. If not, we'll give you some tweaks of things that can be done. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Don't procrastinate. 2023, let's make it a good year no matter what happens. 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. We've got more insights coming up on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Do you have a retirement plan but would like a second opinion? Call Philip Statler today, 863-285-3815. Statler Financial Services, 863-285-3815. Remember that first paycheck when you started working all those years ago and you looked at the net amount and thought, whoa, what happened here? Well, it could be this way with your retirement accounts. You know how much you've saved, but if you haven't planned for Uncle Sam, you could come up short in retirement. With tax laws constantly changing, there's a lot you need to know to make sure you're not paying more than your fair share. Philip Statler and the Statler Financial Team have helped hundreds of families plan for retirement for more than 20 years. They'll help you create a plan that shows you how taxes could affect you now and in the future. Set up a visit with Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial. Just give them a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815. Make sure you know how these changes could affect you so you can avoid some of those whoa moments in retirement. Call 863-285-3815. Firm offers insurance services but may not give tax advice. Advisory services are offered through Statler Financial Services, Inc., a registered investment advisory firm in the state of Florida.
Thanks for joining us today on the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring. And Philip gets questions about all things retirement each and every week. And we like to, every now and then, take part of the show and take a few minutes and answer some of those questions that Philip often gets. So, time for our mailbag segment. Are you ready, Philip?
I am ready for whatever you can throw out.
Well, we have some good ones here. I always love the variety in these questions because folks have so many different types of issues that they are a little bit concerned about. So first up, we have Steve in Sebring who feels stuck when it comes to financial decisions. He says, I don't like the idea of missing out on ways to make a good profit, but I also worry about losing too much. I don't want to spend my retirement wishing I'd made better decisions. How can you help someone like me?
Good question, Steve. And I think that when I look at that, that's where I think planning really comes into play, and our use of the rule of 100. Because I think everybody needs both of those buckets, right? We talk a lot about two things. One, we talk about buckets in terms of you need to have a bucket that's safe and liquid. You need to have a bucket that's there for income, and you need a bucket for growth. And so all those different buckets, it come into play when we actually put together that retirement income plan. And so I think that is, if you think in those terms, how much do you need in the income bucket? How much do we need in the growth bucket? And then how much do we need in the safe, in the income or the liquidity bucket? Then I think that helps you kind of balance those things out. And so that you don't worry about the ups and downs of the market, because you know you got stuff over here that's safe, and you got stuff safe. So then you can take a little bit more risk in the other bucket that's going to be out there in the market a little bit more. And then it's more about not picking one stock that's going to get you a home run. It's more about picking a process that's going to work for you, that's going to produce the results year after year. And I think that's the key is finding that portfolio. Now, granted, they're all not going to be up, right? I mean, you're going to have ups and downs. That's the whole idea of the stock market. And so just finding a portfolio that has more wins and losses is what you want to look for.
All right. Great insights there, Philip. Appreciate that. And thank you, Steve, for your question. Next up, we have a question from Bill from Lake Placid, who wonders what could be the safest place for my retirement savings. He says, I don't want to lose a single dime.
Man, that's, yeah. Don't we all? Nobody wants to lose anything. Well, here's the deal. There are places that you can put your money that'll be absolutely safe. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the bank, right? You can put our money in the bank in a CD or savings account or money market account, and it's safe. It's not going to go anywhere. It's not going to go down in value. It's going to be there for you. Now, it may not make a lot. I mean, it may now, but over time, it's not going to make as much as other vehicles that are out there, but it's safe. It meets that requirement. A second item that you could look at there, and that would kind of be in that category, Bill, would be, what they call an indexed annuity. And that indexed annuity gives you a couple options, right? Your principal will be protected. You're just not sure what you're going to make every year, but it's another safe alternative. Now, there's always drawbacks, right? So any kind of annuity, there's going to be surrender charges and other things. So you need to make sure that you're sitting down with somebody that can explain all those things to you,
right,
before you make that decision to use that as a vehicle going forward. U.S. Treasuries, they're safe. Now you got to hold them till they mature because they're going to float in value. But hey, if you go out and buy a 10-year Treasury, then hey, in 10 years you're going to get your money back plus the interest that is paid you over that time period. So another option that you have is something like that. And again, a lot of good questions, Jen, but it all still boils down to planning, right? If we don't have a plan in place,
right,
how do we really know what direction to go? And that's where our whole core retirement design comes into play, is helping us put together that whole planning scenario and making sure that we're in the right place to move forward and that our retirement is going to be the retirement we always dreamed it to be. Give us a call at 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815 to get a phone consultation with us. We'll walk you through our process, and we'll make sure that you're on the path you need to be on. Again, that number is 863-285-3815.
Talking today with Philip Statler. He is president and CEO of Statler Financial Services in Sebring, and I am Jen Rezac alongside, going through some of your retirement questions that so many people have for Philip and the team there at Statler Financial. Our next question comes from Donna, who is in Sebring, who wrote, I want to leave something for my kids and grandkids, but I don't want to sacrifice my whole retirement to do that. How can I figure out how much I can afford to leave them, but still have enough to do some of the things I've been looking forward to? There's that balance again, Philip. We want to be able to balance that a little bit, right?
You're right. It all comes down to that balancing act, right? And so the question is, how do you do it? And again, it comes down to just the planning. If you plan right and you know what you want to give the kids, what you want to leave them, then you can make it work, right? I mean, we don't want to do without just so our children can have something. But if we start soon enough in the planning process, then we can allocate certain dollars to go to our beneficiaries, our kids. But it's a planning process. And, whether that's through life insurance or through other means, again, it's all putting that plan together and that process. And if you don't have a plan, then you won't have a process to do that. And we'd love to help you do that. We can sit down and talk about that and determine what's the best avenue for you to accomplish that goal.
863-285-3815. Real quick, that is the number to call to reach Philip Statler and the team at Statler Financial Services as we continue answering some of these questions here today. I know Philip gave that phone number a few minutes ago, but one more time, 863-285-3815. I think we have time to do one more of these questions. Last one today, we have one from Chuck in Avon Park who says, if I'm already retired, do I still need life insurance? I could save some money if I didn't have to pay for that premium anymore.
Funny you asked that question because I got asked that question actually over the weekend.
Yeah.
And it is. And one of my family members was asking. And so here's the deal. The question is, do you have debts that need to be paid off? Mm-hmm. But I look at it in terms of that. Do I have a mortgage that needs to be paid off? Because if you don't have debts and you have enough income coming in and you have enough portfolio, to live off between that and your income, then the question is, do you really need life insurance? And I think it's a question where I call it you create T accounts, right? The pros and the cons. Mm-hmm. Here's the pros of keeping life insurance. Here's the cons of doing away with it. And I think you have to walk through that process to determine if it's something you still need. And then the other question you have to ask, what type of insurance do you have? Right? Is it term? Is it whole life? Is it universal life? Does it have a lot of cash value to it? So there's a lot that goes into that question. And it's not something that we can just say, oh, this is the right answer or that's the right answer. Until we know somebody's exact circumstances, that question can't be answered, right? We need to know, Chuck, we need to know your exact circumstances in order to help you determine if that is something you need to continue or if it's something you can do away with. I hate to tell anybody to cancel their life insurance, but they may not need it. And if they don't, then that's fine. But I think that we need to look at the whole scenario to make sure that somebody's making the right choice and they're not, taking money away from their family if something were to happen to them.
Right. And so important, Philip, as we have this conversation, that we get that second opinion before we make a big decision, such as canceling some sort of policy or moving some money around. How would you like to close this out today, Philip? What's your final thought for our listeners today as we close out the show?
I think that I would say that, look, one of the things that I think is beneficial is to talk to somebody else. And that's the reason that I created the no obligation 30-minute phone consultation. Ask us whatever questions you have. And if we don't know the answer, we'll point you in a direction so that you can get the answer. But we'll make sure that you're on the right track to get to where you want to be. And the number to call to start that process is 863-285-3815. That's 863-285-3815.
This is the Statler Financial Radio Show with Philip Statler. Be sure to tune in again next week for more insights from Philip. We'll talk to you then.
Information provided during the Statler Financial Radio Show is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information has been obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified investment, legal, or tax professional before taking any action. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing company. Individuals should thoroughly review the contract for specific details of the product features and costs. Income payments and withdrawals from deferred annuities are generally taxable as ordinary income in the year they are taken. All investing involves risk, including the potential loss of